So I'm Jeff Wheeler. I'm the Vice President of Product at Didomi. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've been in the privacy space for about 9 years now.
Why did you choose to work for a startup?
Oh boy. I try to explain this in general to my family that don't get it as well I help give users choice on the internet and make the internet a safer place for them.
What would you say if you had to explain Didomi to your grandma?
So like I mentioned, I've been in the privacy space for about 9 years. I built a CMP at another company and then helped introduce different ad tech and scanning products through other companies. And then way previous to that, I'm air traffic controller in the military.
Can you tell us a bit more about what you did before joining Didomi?
I like startup life much better. I've spent time in both corporate and startup, and I think having relationships and being able to have communication with a smaller group of people just makes work more fun, more interesting, and more collaborative.
And why privacy tech?
I happened to just kind of fall into privacy tech by chance, and it was one of those things that as I learned about how the internet works, how we're impacted by it every day, it just became a passion. It's something that I just grew to enjoy and kind of specialize in.
What's a typical day for you at Didomi?
Oh boy! So being that I'm one of the few in the North American market, I wake up very early. I usually start my mornings about 6 a.m. And I have a lot of meetings with some of the people that report to me and others within the company. And then outside of that, I spend a lot of time keeping up on the industry, attending events, making relationships with DPOs and other people in the industry.
Can you tell us where you see Didomi in 5 years?
Hopefully just growing like we've been. I think there's a huge opportunity for the company. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in the space, and hopefully we can continue to innovate and kind of lead what we do around like consent and user choice. And really that's just going to allow us to grow and differentiate who we are.
What are the core values at Didomi?
Yeah, so our 3 core values are trust, collaboration, and invention.
What does Didomi offer?
Didomi was founded around consent management and cookie banners, and really what we've started to adapt to is really around user choice, and not just being a consent management platform, but a choice management platform. So that can include things like legal choice around cookies, cookie banners, cookie walls, but also around the user choice of how they want to be communicated to, say a preference, and those type of communications as well.
Can you let us know what's the main risk of being non-compliant?
It's an interesting question. If you would ask me that 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been completely around being fined, whether it's in Europe or in the US, but more and more today it's about brand perception and brand awareness, and not being compliant and not offering those solutions can really impact how a consumer looks at that brand.
Why is privacy such a hot topic?
It's a great question. I think part of the reason I mentioned that we aren't just cookie consent is because of that distinction between choice, and I think you can look at the way to handle that in a much different way. Don't just throw up a banner to be compliant. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. But if you look at it as an experience and a way to interact with your customers, the first thing they're going to see on your website or your mobile app or your CTV, and think about, is it on brand? How are you messaging the consent to the user? Those are all things that are going to be really impactful. And if you kind of look at that not only from a regulation perspective, but even from like a geolocation perspective, maybe how you communicate to a French citizen versus an American citizen, you differ that. And those are going to create better experiences for your users, which at the end of the day, if you are looking at like a cookie consent banner, will increase your consent rate and that experience and that brand awareness with your user.
What do you think the future holds for data privacy?
The future, right now I would almost describe data privacy in a very American term as like the wild, wild west. We're seeing a lot of change worldwide. We've seen GDPR and even like the e-privacy directive pre-GDPR. We're starting to see states in the U.S. come up with legislation. Canada's got legislation like in Montreal and Quebec with Law 25. You've got India proposing new regulation. And it's just going to continue to evolve. And I think the one outlier that is really going to change the industry in the coming future is AI. I don't think anyone really knows what that impact is going to be yet, because we've seen such a rapid onslaught of AI in the last 6 months, but that's really going to change the way we look at things, in the next year or two.
Why should people and businesses care about privacy?
Because everyone cares. Like people, they understand what these companies have with their data and how they're using that data. They're starting to understand how targeted advertising works and OBA works. And they want to have more control over that. They don't want to just think that their information is out there for anyone to use. And so, I think the beginning of GDPR really started that domino effect of this visibility into privacy and the privacy tech space.
Can you tell us a bit more about what's going on with privacy in the US?
Privacy in the U.S. is crazy. We saw, a few years ago with Nevada and California kind of kicking off those legislations, and now last year and this year we've seen our 8th, 9th states passing privacy laws, and hopefully at some point that leads to some federal legislation. Hopefully the U.S. can get past some of their bipartisan political issues that are going on, but we're going to continue to see for the next probably year or two at least, every year 5, 6, 7 states joining the ruckus of individual states. And we're probably not done yet this year. Tennessee just passed a week ago. Florida just passed legislation. I was waiting for the governor to sign, and those are all, signs of bigger states that are going to continue to see the next states follow.
In your opinion, how can we offer great user experiences while being compliant?
I think it goes back to the question you asked me earlier. It's all about that brand awareness. If you're going to ignore it, you're going to have customers that may not want to do business with you. That's going to open that up to possible private litigation depending on the state that you're in, and there's just too much risk to ignore it at this point.
What do you think is the next big thing in privacy?
Yeah, it's AI. I think it's going to all be about AI. How that affects, whether it's, how is ChatGPT collecting your data now? How are this generative AI going to use people's information and likeness to create content and videos? And it all turns back to data collection and how it's used and how to process it.
So, third-party cookie phase out. Will it ever happen?
No, I think we're going to see, you're going to see an evolution of the cookie banner. We'll probably get to this, but third-party cookies will be deprecated. But there's still always going to be some way of collecting data, whether it's beacons or pixels or some type of information. But I think beyond just simply asking for consent, we'll see an evolution to more of like smarter ways to ask for consent. Can it be done progressively? Can it be done more of like an on-demand, only ask when it's needed? And I think that's where we'll start to see a change in cookie banners. And you may also start to maybe not be asked in a banner, maybe it's asked in a chatbot or in multiple different methods. But the way that we see cookie banners now will probably be different in the near future. Can
you tell us a fun fact about yourself?
Fun fact about myself. So I don't tell many people this, and most people find it funny, but I'm terrified of ladybugs. I hate them.
And Jeff, what's your biggest dream?
My biggest dream is just being able to take care of my family. I want to see my kids succeed and grow and, leave them in a better world than I left it.